If you're looking at moving to Southeast Asia, two cities probably keep showing up on your shortlist: Chiang Mai in Thailand and Da Nang in Vietnam. I've spent quite a lot of time living in both, and even though they share many similarities, the actual experience of living in these two places can feel very different. In this video, I'm going to compare these cities from the perspective of everyday expat life, not as a short-term tourist. We'll look at the things that really matter if you're thinking about staying longer. For example, the cost of living and housing, food and coffee culture. Then there's the expat community and the locals. Healthcare and transportation are important too. And finally, the overall lifestyle and vibe of each city. I'll also talk about the downsides and potential deal breakers, because some of them are important to consider before making plans. By the end of this video, you should have a pretty clear idea of which city might fit you better. Let's get into it. But before we dive into the details, there's an obvious question. Why would anyone even compare these two cities in the first place? On the surface, they seem completely different. One sits in the mountains of northern Thailand, surrounded by ancient Buddhist temples, jungles, and a slower rhythm of life. The other, meanwhile, is a fast-developing coastal city in Vietnam, with long beaches, wide boulevards, and a much more modern feel. But in reality, these two cities keep appearing in the same conversations among expats, retirees, and digital nomads. And after spending time in both, I realized something surprising. The choice between them isn't nearly as obvious as it seems. Despite their differences, they share quite a few similarities. Both cities are very livable and safe. The cost of living is still relatively affordable, and the infrastructure works well for foreigners. Both cities have populations of around 1.2 million, which makes them medium-sized cities by Asian standards. They're big enough to offer proper city life, modern shopping malls, high-tech cinemas, and great hospitals. But they're not overwhelming megacities like Bangkok or Ho Chi Minh. But this is where things start to get interesting, because even with all those similarities, the lifestyle they offer can feel completely different. Some people move to Chiang Mai and fall in love with the calm pace of life, the mountains, the cafes, and the strong digital nomad community. And then they visit Da Nang and realize it's just not their style. For others, it's the opposite. They start walking along the beach every morning, enjoy the modern coastal atmosphere, and realize that this is exactly the kind of place they were looking for. And in reality, comparing these two cities turns out to be much more interesting than a simple pros and cons list might suggest. When people ask which one of these cities is better, the real answer usually comes down to lifestyle. Numbers, food, and apartment prices all matter, but the overall vibe of a place is what really determines whether you enjoy living there long term. Let's start with Da Nang. Life here naturally revolves around the beach. Long stretches of white sand, coconut trees, and the ocean are just a few minutes away from many neighborhoods. It's very common to see people jogging along the coastline early in the morning, surfing, swimming, or simply walking by the sea in the evening when the temperature cools down. Because of this, the lifestyle often feels very outdoors oriented, with many people spending time exercising, socializing near the beach, or exploring nearby mountains and natural areas. At the same time, it's also a major tourist destination. Large numbers of visitors come here every year, mainly because of the beach and famous attractions nearby. In certain areas, this can mean more crowds, louder nightlife, and sometimes slightly higher prices. Chiang Mai has a very different atmosphere. Instead of the ocean, the city is surrounded by green mountains and countryside. Nature is still very close, but the overall environment often feels calmer and more peaceful. Temples are everywhere, and the influence of Buddhist culture is very visible in everyday life. There's also a noticeable difference in the social atmosphere. Chiang Mai has a long history as a digital nomad hub, so the city has developed a strong network of co-working spaces, cafes, events, and communities built around remote work and entrepreneurship. Many foreigners come here specifically to focus on work, build projects, and connect with others doing similar things. At the same time, the city still offers a relaxed lifestyle with yoga studios, wellness centers, gyms, meditation retreats, and plenty of quiet cafes where people spend hours working or reading. Both cities also feel relatively safe. Walking around at night in most areas generally feels comfortable, and crime levels are fairly low. So in simple terms, the lifestyles can feel quite different, and this is where the choice becomes very personal. One of the main reasons people consider moving to these cities is how affordable life can be. Both places allow you to live comfortably without spending a lot. From my personal experience, you can live a very comfortable life in both places for around $700 a month. That's roughly the budget I usually keep, and it still allows for a really comfortable lifestyle. Of course, some people spend much more, while others spend less, once they learn how things work locally. I won't go too deep into exact numbers here, because I've already made detailed cost of living breakdown videos for both cities on my channel, where I go through my full monthly budget: rent, groceries, eating out, coffee, utilities, healthcare, and mobile data. Basically every single expense. But what I find more interesting is that even when the total monthly budget looks quite similar, the way spending money feels in these two cities can be quite different. Chiang Mai generally has a very low baseline cost of living. Everyday things like local food, transportation, or small services are extremely affordable. But at the same time, the city is full of cafes, restaurants, co-working spaces, yoga classes, and all kinds of small lifestyle temptations. So even though it's easy to live cheaply there, it's also very easy to spend more than you planned. Da Nang feels a little different. Some basic daily expenses can actually be slightly higher. Many people naturally end up spending more on comfort, things like nicer apartments, modern buildings, or living close to the beach. Yes, living a 15-minute walk from the ocean is still relatively cheap here, which means many people naturally upgrade their lifestyle a bit, simply because they can. I know, it's very easy to spend more than you planned, especially if you're running an online business or freelancing while living abroad. One cost that quietly adds up is transaction fees and currency conversion fees when you work with global clients. When your client initiates an international payment, their funds don't simply transfer from their account to yours. Instead, the money travels through a network of correspondent banks, each potentially adding intermediary fees and unnecessary foreign exchange fees that can significantly impact your annual earnings. That's one of the reasons I started using Airwallex. It's designed to help digital nomads get paid faster and keep more of what they earn. With an Airwallex business account, you can open global accounts in 20+ currencies and accept payments like a local in over 70 countries. This means you eliminate unnecessary conversion fees by receiving payments in the same currencies that your clients pay you in. You can choose to hold multiple currencies or convert funds only when you need to at bank-beating interbank rates. As long as you have a business entity, it genuinely simplifies the whole cross-border money headache for freelancers, creators, or small business owners. You can even use Airwallex to generate invoices with payment links, embedded to collect payments from your clients, and leverage their virtual corporate cards and built-in expense management platform to easily manage your business finances in one place from anywhere in the world. If that sounds useful, I've left a link in the description where you can check it out. When it comes to housing, these cities actually feel quite different, and the reason mostly comes down to how they developed over time. Chiang Mai is an old city that has been around for centuries. Many of the condos and apartment buildings that foreigners rent today were built during the big development boom in the 1990s and early 2000s. Because of that, you'll find plenty of options, but a lot of them feel a bit older. They still work perfectly fine for everyday life, but you won't see modern glass towers everywhere. Da Nang, on the other hand, has gone through an incredible transformation in a very short time. Only about 15 years ago, much of the city still looked like a quiet fishing town. Today, It's a modern coastal city with wide avenues and many newer apartment buildings. Because of this rapid development, many apartments here have more contemporary designs, larger windows, and often better views. But it also means construction is still happening across different parts of the city, but I'll come back to that point in a moment. When it comes to rent, Chiang Mai is usually a bit cheaper, especially for simple studios or smaller apartments. Da Nang, on the other hand, tends to have newer and more modern buildings, particularly near the coast, which often pushes prices a little higher. Another noticeable difference is how the expat neighborhoods are spread out. In Chiang Mai, foreigners tend to live across several areas like Niman, Santitham, Jed Yod, or near the riverside. These neighborhoods are full of cafes, restaurants, and co-working spaces, and it's quite normal to hear English spoken in the streets. In Da Nang, things feel a bit more concentrated. Most expats live in neighborhoods close to the beach, where many apartments, cafes, and restaurants are within walking distance of the ocean. One thing many people notice in both cities is humidity and occasional mold issues. This is something you should always check when viewing an apartment. A well-built building with proper ventilation and insulation can make a huge difference. For many people, including me, food becomes a big part of daily life when living in Southeast Asia. And in both cities, the food scene is definitely one of the things that makes life here so enjoyable. Personally, Vietnamese cuisine is easily in my top 3 favorites in the world, so I might be pretty subjective here. It's fresh, full of flavor, and often surprisingly light. There's a big focus on herbs, vegetables, balanced broths, and simple ingredients that work really well together. Another thing I really like about Vietnam is that every region has its own specialties. In central Vietnam, you'll quickly come across dishes like mi quang, bang xiao, and many different noodle soups and grilled meat dishes. If you enjoy exploring local food, it's honestly very hard to get bored. You can eat something different almost every day and still feel like there's more to discover. At the same time, Chiang Mai has its own strong food identity. Northern Thai cuisine is quite different from what many people imagine when they think about Thai food. One of the most famous dishes there is khao soi, a rich coconut curry noodle soup with warm spices and deep, comforting flavors. It's a dish that many people completely fall in love with. But khao soi is just one example. Northern Thai cuisine includes many other dishes that are simple, flavorful, and very satisfying. Compared to Vietnamese food, Thai cuisine can sometimes feel a bit richer or heavier, mainly because it often uses more oil and coconut milk. But that's also part of what gives it its bold and comforting taste. I'm curious if others think the same way, or if that's just my taste buds slowly getting too used to Vietnamese food. Let me know what you think in the comments. Street food culture is also very strong in both cities. Small local restaurants and street stalls are everywhere, and that's often where you'll find some of the best and most authentic food. Walking into a tiny family-run place and ordering whatever they specialize in is usually a very good strategy. What makes both cities especially comfortable for expats, though, is the international food scene. You'll find plenty of Western restaurants, international kitchens, and modern cafes. Italian, Japanese, Korean, Middle Eastern, burgers, pizza, it's all there. Healthy food is also easy to find. Chiang Mai in particular has built a strong reputation among digital nomads for its healthy cafes, vegan restaurants, smoothie bowls, and organic food options. In Vietnam, coffee culture has a very strong local identity. The country is one of the largest coffee producers in the world, and many traditional drinks are based on Robusta beans, which have a stronger and more intense flavor. When you spend time in Vietnamese cities, you quickly discover how creative the coffee scene can be. Of course, there is Café Suada, the famous Vietnamese iced coffee with condensed milk. But you'll also find drinks like coconut coffee, egg coffee, or even salt coffee, which might sound unusual at first, but are surprisingly delicious. At the same time, modern specialty cafes are everywhere, often beautifully designed with passionate baristas and comfortable spaces where people can relax or work for a while. Chiang Mai, on the other hand, has a slightly different coffee culture. The city is known for its huge number of stylish cafes and specialty coffee shops. Coffee there often feels more focused on espresso-based drinks and carefully prepared specialty beans. You'll often see high-end espresso machines, baristas paying close attention to extraction, and cafes that treat coffee almost like a craft. In many ways, Vietnamese coffee culture feels more experimental and rooted in local traditions, while Chiang Mai cafe scene tends to feel a bit more refined and specialty-focused. Price-wise, both cities are still very affordable overall. Local Vietnamese coffee can be extremely cheap, especially in small neighborhood cafes. Interestingly though, specialty coffee in Vietnam can sometimes feel slightly more expensive than in Thailand. One possible reason is that many Vietnamese specialty cafes import high-quality Arabica beans, while Thailand produces a growing amount of specialty Arabica domestically, especially in the northern regions. Another important part of living in a new city is the people you interact with every day. And in this regard, these two cities can feel quite different, even though both are welcoming in their own way. Let's start with the locals. Thailand is often called the land of smiles, and after spending some time there, you start to understand why. Thai culture places a lot of value on politeness, calm behavior, and social harmony. In northern Thailand, this is also influenced by the old Lana culture, the historical kingdom that once had Chiang Mai as its capital. In daily life, this often translates into a very gentle atmosphere. People tend to speak softly, they're extremely polite, and small gestures like smiling back at someone can go a long way. Even the traffic somehow feels calmer, and the overall vibe of the city is quite relaxed. Another thing you'll quickly notice in Chiang Mai is the size of the expat community. Thailand has been welcoming tourists, retirees, and digital nomads for many decades, so the infrastructure for foreigners is already very well developed. There are countless co-working spaces, international cafes, English-speaking services, and communities built around remote work and social events. It's not unusual to walk through certain neighborhoods and hear more English than Thai. For digital nomads especially, it can be very easy to meet people and build a social circle quite quickly. Da Nang feels a bit different in this respect. Vietnamese culture is generally more direct and often louder in everyday life. Traffic can be noisier, people speak more energetically, and the city tends to have a more dynamic atmosphere. During local holidays like Tet, or even on regular evenings, you might hear karaoke, music, celebrations, and a lot of street activity. That doesn't mean people are unfriendly. In fact, many Vietnamese are very warm and welcoming once you interact with them. But friendliness is often expressed in a more straightforward way compared to Thailand. Smiling at strangers on the street, for example, is less common outside of tourist areas, as many locals simply go about their day. When it comes to the expat community, Da Nang is definitely growing. Over the last few years, more and more digital nomads and long-term foreigners have started moving there. However, it's important not to confuse tourists with expats. Because of its beaches and nearby attractions, Da Nang attracts a large number of visitors, so you may see many foreigners in certain areas. But the long-term expat community is still smaller than in Chiang Mai, although it's clearly developing with meetups, co-working spaces, and online communities. In both cities, getting around is generally quite simple, but maybe not in the way people from Western countries expect. Public transportation is fairly limited. Chiang Mai has the famous red pickup trucks called Song Taos, which work like shared taxis driving around the city. Da Nang has a few local bus routes, but they're not widely used by either foreigners or locals, and the network is still quite limited. Instead, the most common way to get around is by scooter. Renting or buying a motorbike is extremely popular because it's cheap, convenient, and gives you a lot of freedom to explore the city and nearby areas. Personally, I stopped driving scooters after having a small accident a few years ago, So I usually prefer simpler options like renting a bicycle, using Grab, which is basically Asia's version of Uber, or just walking when the distance is reasonable. Traffic is one of those topics where people often have different opinions. From my personal experience, Chiang Mai sometimes feels a bit more chaotic during peak hours, although many people would disagree with that. Da Nang has wider streets and a slightly more modern road layout, which can make traffic appear smoother. At the same time, traffic behavior in Vietnam can be quite creative, and pedestrians quickly learn that zebra crossings don't always mean cars will stop. The good news is that once you spend a little time there, you begin to understand the rhythm of the traffic and it becomes quite manageable. Another advantage both cities have is their international airports located very close to the city center, which makes traveling around Southeast Asia very convenient and usually quite affordable. Both airports have also been expanding in recent years as tourism in the region continues to grow. Healthcare is another important topic for anyone planning to live abroad long term. The good news is that both cities offer solid healthcare options, especially when it comes to private hospitals. From my personal experience, I slightly prefer the hospitals in Chiang Mai. Thailand has invested heavily in medical tourism over the years, and many hospitals feel very modern, with advanced equipment, well-trained doctors, and very professional service. English is widely spoken, which makes the overall experience quite smooth for foreigners. I personally visited Chiang Mai Ram Hospital and was very happy with the service. That said, Da Nang also has very decent healthcare facilities. One example is Vinmec International Hospital, where you can get regular checkups and treatments at very reasonable prices. The staff generally speaks enough English to communicate without major problems, and routine medical visits are often more affordable than in Thailand. For everyday things like consultations, minor treatments, or simple tests, both cities are much cheaper than in most Western countries. But serious medical situations like surgery, emergency treatment, or a longer hospital stay can become quite expensive anywhere. That's why having health insurance is still very important. Personally, I prefer Safety Wing, which is quite popular among expats. They offer two main options depending on your situation. Their Nomad Essential plan covers travel and medical emergencies in more than 180 countries, which is great if you're moving around or staying abroad short to midterm. One thing I like is that it's flexible. You can cancel anytime, and it's designed specifically for people living abroad. In my case, I currently pay about $62 every 4 weeks, although the exact price depends on your age and the plan you choose. They also offer Nomad Complete, which includes emergency coverage plus routine care, screenings, and more comprehensive global health benefits for longer-term living. If you're curious about the price, you can check it in less than a minute using the calculator on their website. I'll leave my referral link in the description. It supports the channel at no extra cost to you. Before choosing where to live, there's one practical topic worth mentioning: visas. Vietnam has become quite flexible in recent years. Many nationalities can now apply for a 90-day e-visa with single or multiple entries, and the entire process can be done online. For many digital nomads or slow travelers, this makes short to midterm stays relatively simple. Some foreigners even use this e-visa as their main option by leaving the country briefly and returning every 3 months. Thailand, on the other hand, offers more structured long-term visa options. There are retirement visas, education visas, and several other categories for people who want to stay longer. The process can involve a bit more paperwork, but the long-term pathways are generally clearer. Thailand has also introduced the Destination Thailand visa, which is designed for remote workers and can be valid for up to 5 years. So in simple terms, Vietnam is often easier for shorter, flexible stays, while Thailand tends to offer more options for long-term living. No city is perfect, and if you're thinking about living somewhere long-term, it's important to also talk about the downsides. Both cities have a few things people should know before deciding to move. Let's start with Chiang Mai. The biggest issue people talk about is the burning season. Usually from around mid-February to mid-March, farmers in the region burn agricultural fields, and the smoke can get trapped in the valley because the city is surrounded by mountains. Air quality can become quite poor during that time. The Thai government has been trying to address the problem, but it's complicated because the smoke doesn't only come from Thailand. Some of it also comes from neighboring countries like Laos and Myanmar, which makes the problem difficult to fully control. Another thing to keep in mind is the weather. It can get very hot and humid during certain months. And of course, the city is far from the sea. So if you love beaches and ocean views, you won't find that here. Some people also feel that traditional Thai food can become a bit heavy after a while, since many dishes are fried or quite rich. There are also some practical challenges. Parts of the city developed quickly during the building boom in Thailand, sometimes without the best urban planning. So in certain areas, the infrastructure can feel a bit outdated compared to newer cities in the region. In contrast, Da Nang is developing very quickly, and while that brings modern infrastructure, it also means constant construction in many areas of the city, which can be a real deal breaker if you end up living next to one of the building sites. Da Nang has its own set of challenges as well. The city is actually very well planned, with wide streets and large sidewalks, but in daily life, those sidewalks are often filled with restaurant tables, parked motorbikes, or small businesses. So in practice, walking can sometimes be less comfortable than it looks on paper. One small thing many remote workers notice is that internet speeds in Vietnam are usually a bit slower and slightly less stable than in Thailand, but they are still quite decent and more than good enough for most everyday work. And while Da Nang has one of the most beautiful beaches in the region, you'll occasionally notice issues with litter, like plastic bottles or cigarette butts left in the sand. Personally, I feel this is something that could be managed better, although the situation is slowly improving. Smoking is also much more common in Vietnam in general. Cigarettes are extremely cheap, sometimes less than $1 per pack, and people smoke quite freely in many places. Some foreigners even joke that it's one of the smoking capitals of Asia. Despite all these downsides, I honestly enjoy living in both cities. They're different places, but in some ways they feel strangely familiar. Most of the time, people aren't really choosing a city. They're choosing the kind of life they want to live. And for me personally, these two cities have become places I keep coming back to every year, spending more and more time in both, without ever feeling the need to choose just one.